Hi guys, thanks for coming back. Thanks for coming back to the channel. Thanks for coming back to another boring video. So today I'm just doing some work on the Mercedes, the dog wagon, the E-Class estate. Basically there was a few issues with the left-hand mirror a while back, and obviously we needed it on the road there and then, so I took it apart. It turns out loads of wiring was broken. Just where the mirror folds, it had broken. So what I did was just soldered it back together. Obviously I knew that there is a potential that it could and will and has break again. Solder's not that flexible, and also the wiring itself was quite damaged anyway. So all I'm going to do is I'm going to take the wing mirror off, seeing as we don't need to be going anywhere. I'm going to take it apart. I'm going to see what type of wiring I need to order, what type of pins I need to order in order to make up a new loom for it. So it'll be a brand new fresh loom. Try and get some upgraded wire if I can as well, so it's a bit thicker on those on those bend line flex points. And yeah, so I'm just going to take this off and I'm going to take it inside. Don't know if you can see that there, but yeah, I've just found one wire already broken. It's just sticking out, so yep, that's a problem. Soldering hasn't held very well. Alright, that was a major ball ache. All the screws are like absolutely rounded to hell. So I had to kind of just like improvise too, so I could kind of get grips on. Third one I managed to, it's like a star bit with a security pole in the middle, you know, where you have to have a hollow centre in your bit. In the end I just put a really tiny flat in it, and it was loose enough to kind of just wind out. Really annoying. I just need to go and disconnect the wiring harness. So if you see here, the wiring goes into the car, so I just need to drop the door card and take it off. But as you can see, there's a wire sticking out there. So my expert soldering didn't work. Well, it worked, it just kind of snapped again, because again it's on a failure point where it opens and closes. So 2 minutes, whip the door card off and we'll take it inside, see what we're working with. And to be honest, is that the wing mirror? Oh yeah. Ah, great. Don't need to take the door card off because I've just figured out that the harness is actually here, accessible, so it's a lot better. Let me bring you in and show you. This wire in here is for the mirror, so just take that plug out there. That's one. Will it feed through though? That's the only issue. Should do. See. Right, that's two. But in case you do need to ever take the door card off, there's a bolt there as well, Torx bit, 2 Torx bits here, and it's just those plastic tab things. Start breaking them loose and then, you know, you can pull it out. Right, let me see if I can get this out without taking the door card off then, because that would be a hell of a lot easier actually. Let me go ahead and do that. Alright, so yeah, I managed to get the wiring loom through. Just 2 connectors, so I just pulled them through one at a time. Use a bit of common sense, and the wing mirror came off. Obviously this is going to leave the car open while I potentially, or I can't really go anywhere and get new wiring because, well, lockdown. So I'm going to have to order some probably. Online deliveries are still happening. So I've just done this just in case it gets a bit wet out here. I mean, it's quite nice now. Don't really look on camera. Trust me, it's quite nice. It's like 22 degrees, but this is England, and that tomorrow it could be snowing or torrential rainfall. So yeah, so just put a couple of layers of duct tape, a few on the inside, a few on the outside. Just put this like detailing painter's masking tape down because it's quite low tack, whereas the glue on the actual duct tape can really affect the paint. So I've just put this down first and then just put it over it. So yeah, this is how the car's going to get left for a couple of days. So we'll head inside, see what's going on with this mirror. Alright, so this is actually the next day. Couldn't bother to finish it off last night. So I've got the mirror inside. What I'm going to do is I'm going to start stripping it, disassembling it, and then find out exactly like what size of wire, what gauge of wire, any connectors I need, any you know, ancillaries, etc. I need. So let's start taking it apart, have a look into it, and see what we've got. Alright, so I'm just in the office. A bit easier just sitting down and working on it. Lighting's not terrible. Just moved everything out of the way. So I've got this down just so I don't damage the desk. Got a few hand tools, the essentials, and yeah, let's get stripping it. So that's the motor that actually moves the mirror glass itself, so it kind of pivots around on here. You know, you can see it. You can hand actuate it, but it basically just moves around. You can see here my previous handiwork with I'd soldered a lot of this together, and then I actually forgot a lot of supplies when I went to do it. I went to do it at someone's unit because it was freezing. my good friend Rich down at AutoWorks, and yeah, so I forgot half of my stuff. Ended up using his soldering iron, not mine. Finding some random electrical tape, so I did the best I could. But under here there's some solder. So I think this is for the disconnector on the back. Is for the like when the case slots over it, the indicator on the wing mirror like has a fixed connection and it plugs into that. It just slides in. So that needs to be released and come round here for this part of the loom to come out. And there's like a little, this part of the loom, and this part, it just runs through near the motor. So I think I should just be able to thread it out through the gap that's already there. But we'll see. I'm sure I did this on Vesta's, my fiance's C-Class when I swapped all hairs over. Someone had bodged it, so I had to do pretty much this, swap like a dodgy motor onto the new mirror, and yeah, it's complicated, but at least I sort of know what I'm doing with this. So so I'll take the motor off, see if I can loosen that. It might allow me a bit more space within here. So alright, so finally I managed to separate the shell from all the wiring. Bit awkward, the motor's kind of in the way. Can't really see a way to get it fully off here, so I'd loosened this screw it up in. Whoa, camera. Zoom out a little bit. I loosened the screw up in here, and kind of just had to. It's kind of still fixed into position. I don't know if it's because it's on the gears here. You can't really see that on camera. I just had to kind of put stuff between here and lever it out of the way. Obviously not using too much force. So I mean, the wiring loom's out, so now I can just start having a look and seeing what's filled, what I need to get. Alright, so this is where we're at. I've got it all out, I've got it all apart. So the bits that I'd filled are this bit to the indicator, which makes sense why the indicator wasn't working. So one of them filled, I cut the end off, but it filled at my soldering. The other bit filled, just it was never soldered. This bit was intact last time I was looking at it, and this time it isn't intact. So you can see it's a clean break. That's that one to that one. That one to that one, I believe. And then also we've got a random brown wire has broken off of the other part. I don't know what this does. This is for the mirror motor. Alright guys, so it's another day. I'm filming on the GoPro at the moment, so I hope the quality is going to be alright. DSLR is being loaned out just for some pictures and stuff. So yeah, I'm just kind of working on the GoPro, but should be alright. I'm inside, you know, I'm close. So I've tried to set up as best I can. So what we're doing, we're back on the loom. It is another day, like I say. What I've been doing is, well, I'll just show you. So it looks very, very messy on here. But basically, I've got my soldering iron, got some electrical contact cleaner just from cleaning some existing bits up, some stripper, crimpers, length of new wire, various blades. I've kind of used this as like a makeshift clamp to hold the wires in place while I'm soldering them, which is good. Another little wire stripper for the really small bits. It's a bit of an annoying bit. And then the original loom. So originally my plan was to replace the full loom, but I couldn't find any of the little connector blocks. Let me see if I can show you one. So these little connector blocks, I don't know if you can see it on there. It probably won't focus, to be honest, but they're like really, really tiny. Like there's my finger for reference. So, you know, they're really small. Couldn't find any, and obviously they need to be that shape as well. To go into the blocks. So what I've done is, this wire as well, thought it'd be the right thickness, but it's actually a little bit thicker. I'm hoping that doesn't affect anything.
But what I'm doing is I have, rather than replacing the full loom, because I can't get these off, I tried getting one of these off to reuse it, and it worked, but it took me a while. What I've been doing is just cutting out, where have I done it earlier? Especially this as well, like this is sealed unit, so I've been cutting it out, I've been cutting a bit, stripping a bit of wire back, and I know that this is good wire of the original wire. It's flexible, it's not brittle, it's not near where it's going to be bending, because it's close to the termination point. So I've got the new wire, I've soldered it in, I've heat shrunk it. I mean, it's pretty solid, but you can bend it if you want. You can bend it into position, so it might be a bit awkward to get it back in, but you know, it's gonna work. It's gonna work. It's gonna happen. And then I've given myself quite a lot of extra wire. Now that might prove to be excessive, but I just wanted to kind of make sure I had enough wiggle room. And the thing is, then as well, it won't be bending too much. I can always loop it back up, or even worst case scenario, I can always cut it down and resolder it somewhere, you know, somewhere else. And then at the other end, it's just going back into the original connector block, and I've just done the same. So I've taken the original, like I've cut it here, and myself enough to work with, stripped it back, soldered it to this, and this is kind of like a middle piece really, the thicker wire, the new wire. And yeah, just heat shrunk that, and then you've got a completed repaired wire loom with fresh wire in the middle where it matters most, where it's more likely to break and bend. I was going to replace the other wires. Again, I don't want to put too much of this thick wire in case it does affect anything. And obviously thicker wire, it has a higher resistance, so I don't want to be drawing too many amps from it, or any sort of would it be Mercedes, it senses any errors, so it'll flash up any warnings. I know a lot of like the CAN bus systems on the VAG and the BMW and stuff like that, if you use the wrong sort of voltage stuff like bulbs, or you know, wrong amperage fuses or whatever, maybe not fuses but components, it can actually give you warnings. So I don't want to do that, because it just kind of registers, it sends a signal, it expects a certain resistance or a certain signal back. When it gets anything other than that, it just sort of goes, oh, warning. Not a clever system, but it serves its purpose, it works. So don't want to use too much of that. So what I've done is I've tugged, I'm gonna take this old electrical tip that I had off and just redo it. But I've tugged on all of these, like full on grabbed them and pulled them at both ends, and they all seem very solid, so I'm just going to leave them for now. I know it's a bit annoying, I don't want to have to split this again. If anything breaks again, I'm probably just going to try and find, like, see if we can buy this whole new loom from Mercedes maybe. I don't know if they'll sell a loom separate, but obviously with what's going on, the pandemic, COVID, the quarantine, I didn't really fancy trying to get my way to Mercedes and all that sort of stuff, so I've just ordered some wire online and, you know, bits and bobs. So I've already soldered quite a lot of it in. I'm just going to carry on now, just finish this last, I think there's last two wires off, and then I'm going to show you what we do to tidy the existing wiring up, and then yeah, show you what we've got as a finished product. I'm going to put it back on the car, and hopefully it'll work. So I've got some new bolts as well. We got Bella, come. No. Ah. So guys, I don't know if anyone's interested at all, but I just wanted to show you the way that I do soldering, that lens solder. So you do, a lot of people just get the wires and twist them around each other. Kind of works to an extent, but to get it strongest, what I'm going to do is set this up here. What I'm going to do is kind of flare them out a bit. Oh, in fact, better put the heat shrink on first. Always make sure your heat shrink's away from the soldering area, because otherwise it'll just get stuck there with the heat from the actual soldering process. So what I tend to do is just kind of flay them out in like a cone. Not loads, so you don't want it absolutely loads split out. And this works better when there's two, you know, of the same sort of gauge of wire, so it's not ideal on this, but you can see here I've done the same on the other. Slot them together and you kind of just intermesh them. So I hope you can see that. I don't know how well it's going to come out on this GoPro, but you just intermesh them and then you can twist them together, and you can twist it, and they're all meshed and they become strong. There's not really that much of a gap. And then to solder it,
what you want to do is you don't just want to drop solder on and like melt through from the top. You put too much heat in it that way. You want to put your soldering iron underneath the piece, like touching the bottom. So I always use like a flat tipped blade to get as much heat spread evenly across as possible, if I can, unless it's obviously real precise work, etc. You kind of touch it to the bottom under there and keep that until it's heated up, and you just dab your solder on top of it and it goes through, and that way it soaks through and it melts through and it fills all the little gaps, any gaps that you might have left there, because you're not, no matter how strong your fingers are, you're not going to compact them perfectly. Fills all those little gaps and then also forms a sheath on the outside, so it's not just like an outside shell and it's, there's no bond inside, so there's movement, it's locked at every level. That's why when I'm pulling it, I mean, like now you can, it moves a little bit but it's kind of strong, but once it's soldered, I'll show you, I'll tug on it and it's really strong. So you can get little soldering mounts, it's like 2 little crocodile clips, they're a lot better. I thought I had one, obviously I don't, so I'm just kind of using this jury rigged setup here, but it's doing the job. Soldering iron, like I say, you just want to get underneath the piece. Usually dab a little bit on here as well because it improves thermal efficiency. So get enough solder out, you don't want to be stopping halfway through, and just touch it on there, it'll heat the piece up, and then look, the solder just flows through. And I do like to put a bit on, to be fair, but just something like this where it's really necessary. See that? It's just flowed through and it's covered all the. Clean your tip as well straight away on a sponge. So see how that has just followed the contour of the actual wires. It's just coated them and covered all the gaps in between. Like I'm holding this pretty tight, so this is what I always do to test it afterwards. My fingers are actually slipping before the wire and the bond is breaking, so if that can hold that, then it's probably going to be able to hold in a static position on the car, which is why again I've done it close to the end here. So I'll just heat shrink this, got one more to do and then we'll go refit it on the car, so I'll come back to you in a second. Alright, so I've soldered what I can. It was a bit of a ball ache. I had to bodge one of the little connectors, the female pin receivers. The bits in the connector blocks in here, the female something. I had to butcher one of them. It got stuck in the housing as I was pulling it out, snapped off a bit, so I had to go find another similar sized one in the garage that I found I had from some random parts I picked up before, squash it down a bit, put it in and sort of solder it together so that it was solid. It's a bit cowboyish. I don't have any of the proper connectors. I think I have found what they're called. They're called MQS series female connectors, I think, the square ones. I googled Mercedes-Benz connector locks and that's what came up. Well, Mercedes-Benz wiring loom connector terminals female, something like that, loads of random keywords, and that's what came up. So if it goes again, I imagine it'll be that, because all the other soldering was pretty solid, so I'll just have to get another one of them. But for now, it seems to work. So I went and just took the components into the car. And I went and kind of just took the wiring loom out. It was even worse than this. It wasn't even, none of it was loom taped. And I just took it out and function checked it, and it all seemed to work. So what I've done is I've just made a start on taping up some of the loom. So I've just done up to here before I figure out, where it's going to go, because some of it needs to go through here. It was a bit tight. Some of the wires are loose. These are for the heated glass on the mirrors. This is just for the motor. What I did was, this one was already on here. It was fine. There's no, it doesn't seem too brittle. There's a bit of a kink in it there, but it doesn't seem too brittle, and it doesn't move too much. So what I've done is just left this one, but I've put some heat shrink around it there, and then some electrical tape around it there, just to kind of secure the connector a bit more and make it a bit more solid. So, in theory that should work. Route it around into the place it all needs to be, and then jobs are good. And so I'll route it through, I'll show you what the final product looks like, all the loom tape, etc., and then we'll go put it on the car and make sure it still works, because between function checking it and putting it actually in situ, stuff can stop working. And that's happened to me before, and it's an absolute ball ache, but it can happen. So we'll do that. So I'll catch up with you guys in a sec. Nah, absolutely done. So I got it test fitted with the just the bare shell and the components, and it all worked. And I've gone to fit it. I've put it all finally into place. It just doesn't work. The indicator just doesn't work. So you get that because the one in the mirror's out. And it's like the end of the day. It's taken me loads of hours of work to get to that point, and it worked, and then it just stopped working. And I don't know why. And I'm hungry. I'm really pissed off at Mercedes. Now the options are get a second-hand loom. I don't really want to do that because they're going to be brittle. The wires are going to be the same age, and they're going to be brittle. They're going to potentially do the same thing again. Other option is try and get Mercedes to supply me with just a loom. I don't know if they will. A lot of the time they won't just supply looms, parts departments. Also, Mercedes do this thing. Do you know, like when you have a VAG car, a VW, Audi, Seat, Skoda, anything like that? So all the wires are there for all the options. You can get a bog standard car, and most of the time it'll have the top range options. It'll have all the wiring for it. All that needs to be done is, to a certain extent, is just coded in and enabled. So you can either do that yourself. Or you can pay the dealer to do it if you're a retard, or you can get someone to code it in. Mercedes don't do that. That'd be too simple. So they have separate wiring for every trim option. They have separate wiring configurations. So for this, like, it's got the memory function, it's got heated mirror, dip on reverse, and that all gives you a different combination of wires that you have. So to source one, it's probably going to be a ball ache. So yeah, I just thought I'd include this anyway. I'm going to include, I know it might seem a bit of an anticlimax for some people, but I'd rather include the realness, the reality that you can be working on a car for absolutely hours and it still just doesn't work. So I'd rather actually show that than just show the good parts about the car and show the good parts about the process of working on the car. So yeah, I'm going to end that video here, guys. Wait, stop there, that isn't the end. If you made it this far, I'm proud, because it's been a bit anticlimactic as well after all that wiring. There are some useful tips for soldering, or what I find useful for soldering in there anyway, but not really much gets accomplished in the video other than a lot of time being wasted and a lot of frustration. So yeah, not the best. But I thought I'd leave it up. I want to give you guys a real view of what goes on. It's not always, oh yeah, and this is the job done and that's good and everything goes to plan first time. It's not always like that. But there is a silver lining. So tomorrow, at the date of filming this, I'm picking up from Mercedes a brand new loom, and it comes with, you can't just buy the loom. So it's the loom already inside of a new frame, and that comes with a motor that folds the window in and out as well, so it should just be plug and play after that. Obviously I'll just transplant the motor and for the actual wing mirror and the housing from the old one, the one that we've already got. So yeah, bit annoying. I thought I'd be able to do it on the cheap and without buying a full new OEM part. I mean, that it costs £280 for that, so it's like, ugh. But when your mirrors go in Ori, it's really annoying. You know, when it doesn't dip right, when the indicator don't work, and you just get that tick 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 tick, and you get a fault on the dash every time. It's pretty annoying. It was driving me insane when I borrow it, and also my mum hates it. She likes the car, she just hates that. So we said, right, bite the bullet, take the plunge. We're going to order a new one, so I'm picking it up tomorrow. So there will be a video coming soon where I go and collect that. We'll just take it back, fit fit it to the car, and that should be a good one. It should actually be sorted then. So, fingers crossed. So, thanks again if you made it this far. If you did, please think about subscribing. It really does help me out. It means a lot to me as a small YouTuber, so I appreciate that. So if you've got any thoughts, any comments, drop them down below. So yeah, thanks for watching, and I'll see you guys in the next one.